Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Learing Tree. Grab your paper and pencil. Class is about to begin. Colombia just elected one of the most unconventional presidents in its modern history. Abelardo de la Espriella went from high-profile criminal lawyer and businessman to president of a country still struggling with armed groups, cocaine trafficking, crime, poverty, and enormous regional inequality. So, who exactly is this guy? How did he become president? And what kind of country did he inherit? And what does he actually plan to do about it? Abelardo de Espriella built his public reputation outside traditional elected politics. He became nationally known as a criminal attorney, businessman, and media personality before moving into the presidential politics. His legal career included representing powerful and sometimes highly controversial clients, which made him both famous and controversial himself. But unlike many Colombian presidents, he didn't reach the presidency after decades as a senator, governor, or cabinet minister. He ran as an outsider, promising a dramatic change in direction, particularly on crime, armed groups, government spending, and the economy.
It would have to be reviewed because I believe that Colombia has a criminal pandemic. A criminal pandemic where the base of that pyramid is drug trafficking, which is the source of all forms of violence. Above drug trafficking comes illegal mining. Above illegal mining is extortion. Above extortion is micro-trafficking. Above micro-trafficking is drug trafficking. Above drug trafficking is kidnapping, and so on. So if we break the base of that pyramid, because I insist, the worst tragedy in Colombia is drug trafficking. Cocaine is the primary source of all forms of violence. I have an iron fist against criminals, and I will go with all of them.
Then came one of the closest presidential elections in Colombian history. No candidate secured the necessary majority in the first round, sending the election into a runoff. De la Espriella defeated Ivan Cepeda with approximately 49.66% to 48.70%. The preliminary margin was only about 250,000 votes. And on August 7th, 2026, Abelardo de la Espriella became the president of Colombia. But electing a new president was only half the story, because to understand why Colombians chose such a dramatic change in direction, we need to understand the country he inherited. Colombia sits at the northwestern corner of South America, bordering Panama, Venezuela, Brazil, Peru, and Ecuador. With access to both the Caribbean Sea and Pacific Ocean, the Andes run directly through the country, while enormous plains, jungles, and remote rural regions stretch east and south. And that geography matters. Mountains, jungles, rivers, international borders, and access to two oceans have historically made some remote regions extremely difficult for the national government to control. And Colombia's security problem isn't simply ordinary street crime. Several major armed organizations continue operating in different parts of the country. These include the ELN, dissident factions that broke with or rejected the FARC peace process, and the Clan del Golfo, one of Colombia's largest organized crime organizations. These groups compete over territory, trafficking corridors, coca production, illegal mining, extortion, and other criminal economies. That means part of rural Colombia faced something much closer to an ongoing armed conflict than the crime experienced in a typical major city.
Deep in the hot, humid jungles of Colombia, these guerrilla fighters aren't yet ready to turn over their weapons.
Entonces son 2 gramos para cambiarlos por el kilo de arroz. No hay dinero, no hay economía. Esta es la plata de nosotros los campesinos en este momento.
Blindado 2 de blindado 6. Iniciando movimiento. Recibido.
Attack on security forces by FARC dissidents and civilians. Videos released by Colombian officials show an armored vehicle in flames as a crowd hurls stones at it.
Now put some numbers behind what we're seeing. Colombia's national monetary poverty rate was 28% in 2025. but location matters enormously. Urban poverty was about 24.6%, while rural and dispersed areas were nearly 39.5%. Colombia also recorded approximately 25.8 homicides per 100,000 people in 2025. So the Colombian experience can look dramatically different depending on whether you're living in a prosperous section of a major city or an isolated rural region contested by armed organizations. And then there's cocaine. Coca cultivation remains fundamental to understanding Colombia's armed conflict because the illegal drug economy provides enormous amounts of money to criminal organizations. UN data recorded approximately 253,000 hectares of coca cultivation in 2023, with potential cocaine production estimated at 2,664 metric tons. That doesn't mean Colombian society revolves around cocaine. It means controlling cocoa-producing territory and trafficking routes can be enormously profitable for the armed groups fighting over them. But this is equally as important. Colombia is not simply gangs, cocaine, and poverty. Bogota is a massive modern capital. Medellin is an important commercial and technology center. Cartagena is an international tourist destination. Tens of millions of Colombians live ordinary lives completely removed from the images outsiders associate with the country's drug wars. Colombia's real story is the enormous contrast between those different realities.
Porque no quiero ver más casas con rejas, como si fueran una cárcel por miedo a la inseguridad. No quiero ver peluquerías, tiendas, panaderías, carnicerías que cierran sus puertas porque los extorsionistas se llevaron las ganancias a punta de extorsión y vacuna. Nunca más inseguridad en sus calles en el bosque.
And that is what Colombia's new president, Abelardo, inherited. So now comes the important question. What does the new president say he's going to do about it?
Ganó la posibilidad de que Colombia transite por el camino de la libertad, de las instituciones y del Estado de Derecho, lejos del abismo de los modelos totalitarios bolivarianos que tanto sufrimiento han causado a nuestra región. La extrema coherencia que proclamé durante la campaña comienza por respetar la democracia en toda circunstancia, para el combate frontal.
Y voy a acabar con todas las formas de bandidaje, sobre todo con los corruptos, que son los que más daño le hacen al país. Se pierden 90 billones y en este gobierno o desgobierno se han robado hasta el agua a los floreros, hermano. No van a dejar porque la gente me dice, te van a dejar la olla raspada, ¿no? La olla se la va a llevar Benedetti. De seguro, es que ni la olla van a dejar. Entonces hay que resolver, y yo vengo de la empresa privada, donde uno tiene que resolver y hacer las cosas. Mira lo que pasa en Bogotá, por ejemplo.
His announced agenda represents a major departure from the previous government's approach. On security, he has promised a tougher response to armed and trafficking organizations rather than continuing the previous negotiation strategy. On Coca, he has promised resuming aerial eradiction. On prisons, he has proposed dramatically expanding capacity, including mega prisons, just like CCOT in El Salvador. Oh boy. He also proposes reducing the size of Colombia's national government by as much as 40%. Economically, he wants greater private investment and renewed development of Colombia's oil, gas, and mining sectors. But there's an important distinction. These are just announced policies and promises, not results. He has only just taken office a few days before this recording. Whether these policies can be implemented and whether they actually work remains unknown.
This will be a government of extreme consistency. Consistency between words and actions, between promises and deeds, between the principles I defend and the decisions I will make. Affirm that we recovered our greatness, that optimism, displaced discouragement that Colombia found, the path to solve its problems, and that new generations grew up convinced that they could build their future in this land without having to seek it far away. I will strive to lead the construction of a country that inspires respect for the seriousness of its institutions, the strength of its economy, the quality of its people, and the firmness of its principles. I do not ignore the magnitude of the challenge. There will be many difficulties, moments of uncertainty, and decisions that will require firmness. I will never accept that pessimism becomes a state policy. The time has come, dear compatriots, to put to the service of progress the same character with which we have faced adversity for decades.
El Presidente de la Espriella has now gone from campaigning on these promises to actually being responsible for delivering them. And that's where the story really begins. Colombia's problems weren't created by one president, and they won't be resolved by one inauguration. So this is Colombia in 2026, a country with modern cities, enormous natural resources, tourism, business, incredible geography, diversity, but also persistent poverty, cocaine production, and armed organizations still fighting over territory. And Colombians have now handed the presidency to a political outsider promising a dramatically different approach. If you're in America, that should sound really familiar to you. Abelardo de la Espriella says the answer is stronger security, aggressive actions against criminal organizations, and a smaller government, plus a more investment-driven economy. Whether that works is something we simply just don't know yet. But now you know who he is, how he became president, and what Colombia looks like today, and what he's promising to do about it. You decide what you think. If you enjoyed these deep dives in the Learing Tree, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to my channel. See you on the next episode of the Learing Tree. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Peace.